welcome to the first episode of The Couple That Pods Together. My name is Kelsey.
And I'm Chris.
And we happen to be a married couple who likes to do things together, mostly game. And that's where the title came from, mostly. I think one of our first dates, we played video games together, and you had taken a picture of it and captioned it, "The couple that slays together stays together." And that kind of has stuck around with us.
Yeah, I just like the idea that we're a team. And that's kind of representative of that. It's very cute.
Oh, yeah, sure. Cute. So we had the random idea to do a podcast just because we like to talk to each other about things. And while it's nice to talk to each other about these things, it also gets very repetitive sometimes. And sometimes we like outside opinions. And so we'll see where this goes.
Yeah.
Today we're probably going to be talking about video games, but we'll probably expand that topic out and talk about movies, other things we like. Pretty much geeks over here, so we like all that geeky stuff.
Yeah.
So something's going to come up, but today we're going to be talking about video games and mostly talking about games that what got us into gaming in the first place.
Yeah, kind of our gaming journey from, beginning to present.
Yeah. So, that being said, what was the first game you remember playing?
That would be...
And before... I just want to... We're saying game. I'm going to put the caveat. What's the first video game? Because, we go game. We're not talking Sorry.
Yeah.
Or Monopoly.
I have vague memories of my grandparents had a Super Nintendo at their place, and that was special because we could only play it there. They had it on hand so that we could play it when we were there.
Yeah, what were the games that you played?
Super Mario 3. That was the one with the raccoon tail, the Tanuki.
Yep.
But I think the more accurate answer would be I got a Game Boy when I was how old was I? Probably 5 or 6.
Dang.
It had to be sometime around there. I remember opening it. I don't remember how old I was.
Okay.
But then the first game that I really owned and played on my own was Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins.
Dang, that's a title.
It is a title.
I'm just going to go back and say I find it interesting that you have talk about the Super Nintendo at your grandparents' house because I had that similar thing. Yeah. I don't know if we've talked about that. But yeah, my grandparents' house... They had a Super Nintendo. All the kids would go into the basement and we'd play either Super Mario Bros. 3? Yeah. The same game that you said. But also Duck Hunter.
Duck Hunt, yeah.
Yeah, or Duck Hunt, yeah. And we had the little gun controller.
Yeah. Do you know how that works, by the way?
No.
I found this out, when you shoot the gun, the screen flashes. It flashes white. Mm-hmm. There's a dot where the duck is, and there's a camera inside the barrel of the gun.
Oh.
If it sees the black dot, you hit.
Oh.
That's my side fun fact for this episode of the podcast. There will be more.
That is a fun fact.
Anyway. Yeah, I remember it was in the Super Mario All-Stars pack. So it was like Super Mario Bros. 1, 2, and 3. And another fun fact is Super Mario Bros. 2 is not a Mario game. It was a different game, and they just reskinned it as Mario and sold it in America.
Made it easy that way.
for reasons. But it was... I remember going to my grandparents' house because it was special. It was... My parents were pretty anti-video game. Because they thought that's all we would do. We got the Game Boys because we could do it on trips, while we were in the car.
Yeah.
And that would keep us play-sated while we were on a journey where we would otherwise be
screaming, yelling, and saying, "Are we there yet?"
But yeah, my parents thought that it was something we would waste time over, and or one more thing to fight over with me and my brothers. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, I had a Game Boy. That's like one of the first things I remember getting, and I believe now I'm trying to think. It's actually a toss-up. It might be either a Game Boy or we had a Sega Genesis. And I remember on the Sega Genesis, par for the course for me, for those that don't know, I'm a huge Lion King nerd. And it was the Lion King game.
So you knew pain from an early age.
Yes.
Because Lion King, for those who don't know, is a game that looks all cute and cuddly because it's about a kid-friendly game, but it was notorious for being incredibly difficult and unforgiving.
It's very unforgiving because once you lose all your lives, that's it. You go right back to the beginning.
You just have to start over.
You have to start over.
Yeah.
I got to the second to last level. Never beat the game, but I got to the second to last level when I was on my way to find Scar.
That's pretty impressive.
I was very pleased with myself, but also very frustrated that I did not beat that game. But otherwise on like the Game Boy, the big one was Pokemon.
Yes. And that, I mean, my family, I would say I'm the nerdiest in the family. Like, stuff like Pokemon and anything from Japan was not really on our radar. Mm-hmm. So I actually was on a trip with a friend, and he had bought Blue and Red. So then he was like, hey, why don't we play this? And he gave me Red.
Okay.
And that absolutely blew my mind, because I was like, this is the first game I've played where, like, you play for like an hour, you save, you log off, and then like the next day you log in
and pick up
right where you left off. Like, that was not the kind of game that I was used to playing.
Right.
So the fact that you could just build a journey over hours and hours, days, weeks, months, just was absolutely insane.
Right. That's pretty awesome.
But you had an additional hurdle, probably, and this is something that I wanted to talk to you about, because we are of a generation where gaming was a boy thing.
Yeah.
So how was that for you?
It was interesting. I'm sure my brother would deny this now. But I was not allowed to, like, when they got a Nintendo 64, I was told, like, I can't play certain games. I could play some games. But, like, Zelda especially, my brother had, Majora's Mask, and I wanted to play it so bad, and I was not allowed to play it. And I think part of it was he had the save file for it, and he didn't want me messing it up, but the excuse was, no, you're a girl, you can't do it.
Right.
It became like, even though we had a family GameCube, it wasn't really mine, it was my brother's.
Yeah.
And it was, I would always play it when they weren't there. That got to change for me when I got a PlayStation 2. Mm-hmm. And the only reason I got a PlayStation 2 was because Disney. I was a big lover of Disney. Still am. But there was a commercial for a game, and the song was an absolute banger. And I loved it so much, and I was obsessed with it, that I begged for it for Christmas, and it only came out on the PlayStation 2. And that game was Kingdom Hearts.
I can hear the commercial.
Yes.
As soon as you started talking about it, I'm like, I can hear that commercial in my head.
Simple and Clean, is, it's so good. I became obsessed with it. And then of course you're going through Disney worlds, and I was like, that sounds amazing. And so my parents were very generous to me one Christmas, and they got me a PlayStation 2 and that game. And then I got to have that in my room. And then I got to say, none of you can play it. It's mine.
So,
but
like, that was your first, like, console?
Yes.
Like, that wasn't, like, a handheld?
Right.
Okay.
Yep. That one got to be mine alone. And, of course, I think my brother still said, well, Kingdom Hearts is a girl game. So, you win some, you lose some with that. But
So my first home console is a tale that I tell quite frequently because my parents loved to host. However, me and my friends in high school were never going to our house. And that's partially because most of my friends lived like 2 blocks from our high school. But also because we were going there and playing Dungeons and Dragons. Now, as I said, this kind of stuff was not really a thing in my household. I was afraid of, what my parents like. Maybe they would put a stop to it. I don't know. Maybe they would make fun. Like maybe my brothers would make fun of me. I don't know. So I didn't want to admit that we were playing Dungeons and Dragons. So my parents finally sat me down. They're like, we have this great house. We would love to have your friends over all the time. What are you guys doing over there that you can't do over here? And I was like, we're playing video games. We're totally playing video games all day.
Yeah, we're not doing anything extra nerdy over here. Don't look too closely.
Nothing satanic panicky. We're just doing normal high school things like playing video games, which sometimes we would do, but it was mostly playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
So they like asked a bunch of questions about like, oh, like if you got a game system, like what would it be? Like you guys would come over then? And like, yeah, definitely. And I was like, that's hypothetical. That's not a real thing. And then because it was right before it came out, they were like, hey, by the way, we bought you an Xbox 360, which was brand new at the time. Which I was like, oh, okay. I really played this to my advantage. But to their credit, we did start coming over after that because we started playing video games. But the story I always tell, and I told this when I was in retail too, is that they brought it home and it was so new that like all they could get their hands on was just the console itself. They couldn't get they didn't know what games to get. They didn't know any accessories or anything. So they brought it home. I think my mom was traveling from another city, so it came from out of town too. And I set it up and realized that I had no games. So I tinkered with every single setting, every single like option that I could. And all I could do was wait till the next morning to go out and buy games. Yeah. But that really kickstarted it because I know the first big game that I got into was the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Mm-hmm. And that was a big fantasy swords and sorcery. And I remember just playing that over and over and over again. I mean, it's still a really good game. I like that game, but probably dated now.
Probably a little bit. Because I haven't even played that one yet. I played the other one.
Skyrim, yeah.
Skyrim, yeah.
That's number 5.
Number 5.
But yeah, that's probably like that period of time, just like coming home from school, firing up Oblivion, and there were 3 like main character archetypes where it was like warrior, mage, fighter, or warrior, mage, rogue, and I would just like play one of them, like do everything I could with that character, and be like, all right, time to start another one, and I would just rotate between them all the time. So after Kingdom Hearts, do you remember where you went after that? Any other bangers on the PS2?
So this can be a interesting topic of different types of games because there's all kinds of video games. It's not all the action.
Yeah. Shooters,
RPGs, whatnot. So I ended up getting really into Karaoke Revolution, which is basically a glorified karaoke machine, but it had points that you could win. So for those who might not know, you might know Guitar Hero, and it was very similar to Guitar Hero in that you're going through these songs and you're trying to hit the notes, only you do it with a microphone attachment and you're singing. And so they'd have a bar and you would try and get the arrow to that bar based on your voice. And then you would just sing through the songs and whatnot. And I really like to sing, but I don't like to do it in public, and I also don't think I'm a great singer. So that game was a great thing for me to just do alone in my room and just think like I could sing, and then
Yeah.
Pretend. So I did that. Dance Dance Revolution was also a big one. I had the mats at
Yeah,
home.
I was going to ask if you had the pads.
Yeah. They are not as good as the ones in the arcade, though.
No.
They never are. But that was fun to have at home for a bit.
Yeah.
After that, that was kind of the majority of my PS2 time. And then I don't know when, I think maybe I talked to my older brother to verify, like, hey, I'm wanting to get into these games. And I ended up switching to an Xbox 360. And then I saw my brother playing this game, and I was very intrigued by it. I asked him what it was, and it was Assassin's Creed. So I got it, and then I got really into the Assassin's Creed games. I like to say Assassin's Creed 1 is like the first game I ever really fully like start to finish completed.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even do that with Kingdom Hearts. I got like to one of the last levels and always got stuck and I'd get frustrated and I'd stop. But I actually finished Assassin's Creed and I really liked it, so then I kept going. And then I kind of just, ever since, stuck to the RPG space.
Yeah. So if I can go back in time a little bit to kind of match up, then this will match up really nicely. So I would try and play PC games on the family computer, which is a thing if you're old enough. You had a family computer. It had its own room.
You can't be on it if someone needs to make a call or is expecting a call.
Right. So it was usually just me trying to get games that I could run on a computer that never got updated. And that's actually, from what I hear, a lot of people's gaming experience. But
Our age.
yeah, one of those games was Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, made by a little company called BioWare.
Just a tiny company.
Yeah. So after I got the 360, I heard that company that made those games that I really loved, they were working on a game that was in a completely brand new universe. Was going to use a lot of the same concepts as Knights of the Old Republic, plus a bunch of new concepts, heavily based on the choices you make. That game turned out to be Mass Effect. And that was really, really sold why I wanted the 360, because I was super interested in this game. That game was only going to be on the 360. And when all of our friends were kind of being like, well, I don't know if I'm going to go PS3 or 360, that was my deciding factor. And then a buddy of mine was like, I really want to play Assassin's Creed, so I'm probably going to get a PlayStation because it's only going to be on PlayStation.
Was it only on PlayStation?
Originally, yes. And then before it came out, they're like, we lost the exclusivity, so we're actually going to put it on the 360 instead.
Okay. You had me questioning.
So it released on both. It was...
You had me questioning my memories. I was like, did I have a PS3 for a hot moment?
But that was the nail in the coffin for him. So he's like, well, if I can get it on anything, I'd rather get the console that you get.
Right.
So that we can play games together.
Exactly.
And also, so it was like, well, if I can play Assassin's Creed, great. If I can play Assassin's Creed and Halo, even better.
Ooh, yeah.
So the fall of 2007 was an incredible year for games. Because, as you know, Halo 3, Assassin's Creed 1, and Mass Effect all came out.
Dang.
The disk drive in my Xbox 360 died the day after Halo 3 came out.
Oh, no.
So...
You poor man.
We had to... I had to send it off in the coffin. It wasn't the Red Rings of Death coffin, so I still had to pay for it. Oh. But I sent it off, and I actually... Well, everyone was playing Halo 3, so that wasn't that hard. I could just hop over to someone's house and play Halo 3. But I started playing Mass Effect by just bringing my Xbox hard drive over to other people's houses and being like, hey, can I play this?
Oh my gosh.
Which was definitely a choice. And but I know a lot of other people were like, hey, this game looks pretty cool, though. So that was nice. That brings me to you playing Assassin's Creed. So now we're about the same time.
So speaking of Mass Effect,
Yeah.
That's a big deal for us
It is, yes.
because you were a big fan of Mass Effect.
Still am.
Good to know. And I was into their other series, Dragon Age.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember, were you the one who suggested Dragon Age Origins to me?
I can't remember if I was for that one.
Okay.
I might have been, I might not have been.
I might have already had it on my radar, but I believe you helped me solve a conundrum that I had. We were chatting, and I was struggling with an Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed 3, and I was really struggling with wanting to continue that game. And after that game, I was going to play Dragon Age Origins. And I remember talking to you because you were my certified gamer guy, my buddy, who I could always talk to about games.
Sup, that's me. Pro gamer.
And so I think I asked you, said, hey, I really want to start Dragon Age Origins. I'm like, I don't know where at in Assassin's Creed 3, but I'm kind of struggling. And your advice to me was, if I wanted to finish Assassin's Creed 3, I shouldn't start Dragon Age. Because if I started Dragon Age, I wouldn't want to play Assassin's Creed.
I still stand by that.
And you know what? It is true. I ended up not finishing Assassin's Creed 3 because I got very frustrated with that game.
This may be an unpopular opinion in some circles. I know it's not really in ours, but Assassin's Creed 3, categorically not a strong point for the series.
No, I wanted to like it a lot, and it didn't hit the way I wanted it to. But I ended up playing, Dragon Age Origins and loving it. Then something happened.
Oh.
You and I got together.
Yes. I knew that. I was just, I wasn't sure if that was the thing that happened or not.
Yes, that was the thing that happened. Because we had just been friends. We got together. Mm-hmm. It's a cute story, whatever. We're not going to cover it right now here.
Yeah, we'll get to it another time.
However, shortly after we started dating, you told me to come over to your apartment, and you had a game you really wanted me to play, and that game was Mass Effect.
Yes. For all you true romancers out there, the ploy... was that it was not specifically I want you in my apartment. It was that my Xbox had all of the DLC. I already owned all of the games. So logistically, it was easiest for you to be in my apartment. The fact that I wanted you there because I liked you was,
just bonus.
It was just bonus.
You weren't doing any of this because, we were just started dating. You were just like, no, she needs to play Mass Effect.
This is just required homework.
This is just, yeah. Listen, if we're going to be in a relationship, this girl needs to play Mass Effect.
Listen, we're going to spend a lot of time together. You need to
get on board with some things real quick. So then I started playing Mass Effect. That was the fastest I've ever finished a game. I think I finished the first one within a week.
I think you did the entire trilogy in a couple weeks.
Yeah, but I remember specifically the first game being done with it in a week.
Yeah.
And that was going over to your apartment. That was not like I had a whole week of doing nothing. We were in school, I had work.
Yeah, it wasn't like you had it at your apartment and you were playing late into the night or anything.
No. So, but I sped through that game because I loved it so much. And then I asked for the next one. You gave me Mass Effect 2. And then you gave me the third one. And I remember... you would have friends over, and you guys would be playing Age of Empires.
Age of Empires 2, yeah.
Yeah, and you guys would be on your computers playing that, and I'd be in the corner on the Xbox playing Mass Effect.
That apartment was really just a den of gaming.
Yes. But yeah, that's kind of how our relationship started, was with playing video games and coming together to do that.
Yeah, and... we started dating in 2014. Mm-hmm. So I had just gotten the Xbox One. And immediately afterwards, I was a very poor college student, but I scraped together enough to get a second controller. Specifically so that you and I could play Lego Marvel Superheroes.
Yes, that was a wild gesture of love in that moment. Like, I remember you, like, presenting it to me, like, being like, I got you a controller. And that meant a lot, because we didn't have a lot of money. And I was like, oh my gosh, he really likes me. He wants me to play a video game with him.
And I remember, I can't remember specifically if I, like, went to him with this, but I texted a friend a picture, and I think both controllers were in the image. And he goes, oh, nice. Who's the second controller for? Because we were not, like...
Oh, we hadn't told people
We hadn't
yet?
really told people
like,
yet.
we weren't, it wasn't a secret, but we weren't, like, broadcasting it.
Right. And he's like, oh, who's the second controller for? And just, I was sort of, like, a little bit thrown off guard by it, because I was like, that is a very pointed question.
Yep.
And I feel like they were just trying to get me to admit it, that you and I were together.
Mm-hmm. You didn't want to share it yet.
I said, it's for
You were embarrassed of me.
I said, it's for Kelsey.
Yep.
And he went, oh, nice, I approve. So, but that also was a very early thing, that because we had two controllers on a brand new Xbox, that definitely shaped how we spent our early time together.
Oh, yeah. Well, I still remember telling a friend of mine that we had a date night, and later she goes, oh, how was date night? What did you guys do? And I was like, it was great. He made me dinner, and then we played Lego Marvels all night. And she just looked at me like I was crazy, and she goes, really? And I was like, yes, it was like the best night. And she just goes, because that does not sound like a fun date for me, but I'm glad you like it. I was like, well, this is why Chris and I work together.
Yeah.
We really enjoy doing these things, and I think some of our date nights still involve us just playing video games together.
Yeah. That, I don't think that ever really stopped. I know we've gone through, like, a lot of the Lego games are really easy ones.
They're fun.
Yeah.
They're fun, lighthearted ones to just play.
Yeah. We've done a lot of, like, party games together. But when I started doing the whole YouTube thing, I was just kind of doing it on my own. I was trying to figure out how it worked, what kind of content I wanted to make.
In case you didn't know, Chris has a YouTube channel.
Yeah. And that's where we got the idea for this one.
Yeah.
Because on the anniversary of our engagement, I published a video of us playing Overcooked.
Oh, yeah.
And that started because while I was just coming up with ideas of stuff to make for that channel, and I just made a thumbnail that was Chris and Kelsey play Overcooked. And it was that idea because it would be a fun, chaotic game for us to play together. I just kind of liked the idea of having Chris and Kelsey play. And I also really wanted to use the title Too Many Cooks. Because I thought that was perfect for that game.
I mean, it truly is. It also is great because too many cooks is usually what you say when you're frustrated with too many cooks in the kitchen. And I got frustrated with Chris in the kitchen in Overcooked.
And that was, yeah, I honestly, when we started that, I had no idea of the person you would become in the Overcooked kitchen. You had not displayed that kind of...
rage?
I was going to say zeal. Is another direction. But yes, rage. I had not expected that much attitude to come out of you, and it was really fun because we were on camera, so I was just like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing now. I'm rolling with it.
Yeah. Since then, Chris has learned that he can't take anything I say when playing video games to heart or seriously, because I get into a zone where I will say things that don't make logically sense. You know, like every gamer does when they're playing and they're frustrated with the game and they're blaming it on someone else. And then the joys of YouTube, you get to go back to the tape and get proven wrong after the fact.
Yeah.
After you were so confident that you were not the one to do it.
I think one of my favorites examples of that was Alien.
Oh.
A very early episode of Alien. You were definitely a little stressed out. We probably should have taken a break before starting that episode. But you were very clearly being mean to me. And I can't remember if I said anything to you after that.
I don't think so.
But I was editing that video, and you were outside of the room I was editing it in. And I was just going along editing the video, and you just came into the office, and you went, "I am so sorry."
Yeah, it's like I heard back what I was saying, and when I was in a better headspace and I was like clear-headed, and I just was like, oh my gosh, I am so mean to him. I was screaming at him, and I was just like, I felt like I needed to apologize. I felt like I needed to put a PSA out there saying, I don't register how mean I'm being in these videos.
Yeah, after that incident where you heard your own voice on the recording and you came in and apologized, I think you also pre-prepped an apology.
I did.
That you put on social media.
Before that video came out, because I was like, listen, people are going to think I'm a bad wife. They're going to think I'm so mean. And I like to, you can say, but I like to think it's only when I'm playing video games with you. It's not any other time, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, good. But yeah, so that just became kind of a thing that we just like to do together. Yeah. And you're someone who, you're very much into like the news of gaming too. Like I like to play video games, but I don't like fully keep up on all like the new releases, new other things. You are someone who really likes to like dive into that.
Yeah, and I think that started because I worked in retail. I worked at Best Buy. I actually they started me with digital cameras.
Mm-hmm. Something you're very passionate about.
Obviously. Honestly, photography is really cool. It doesn't make any sense to me. That's the thing.
No, right, yeah.
So like while I tried really hard and it was mostly just memorization, but then I had to cover over in gaming a few times, and they actually brought me into a meeting and they sat me down very seriously. They're like, "Chris, we're going to move you over to gaming. You're just a different person over there." And I was like, this is great. You
light up the room when you're in gaming.
So that was, once I got into that, that was really I guess it wasn't the start of it, because like I said, I knew Mass Effect was coming before it was really a thing. So I kind of knew that if you kind of keep your finger on the pulse, you get a lot more information. You kind of learn how those games develop and how they become the products that they are, and you get to like see like, oh, that's probably a game that I'm really like, that I would be really into. I just remember at Best Buy, I was the #1 fan of Dishonored. No one else knew what it was, but I was like, you're gonna love this game. It's gonna be great. But that continued into like, I worked at GameStop after that. And it actually came in handy when I worked at Archway, a vendor for Microsoft. I was talking to those developers all the time, which was really neat.
That was neat.
And there were certain times where like that experience of knowing what was going on was very helpful. Like when all of a sudden we got Bungie coming to Microsoft going, "Hey, we don't know how anything works." And very quietly in the back of the conference room, I was like, that's because they just bought their own independence from Activision. So they're actually like basically starting over from scratch right now, and they don't know what's going on. They don't know how to get their money. They don't know like
they're having to
any of
relearn
these
all
partners.
These things.
They're doing it. They're starting from zero.
Yeah.
So not only has it been like just super helpful, but also just it's an industry that I don't know if I want to be in it anymore, but at one point I really did. For a long time, I really wanted to be in the industry. Now the industry is kind of in a bad place, and I don't really want to be in it.
Yeah, unfortunately, it sounds like there's a lot of not great things happening in the industry. It's one of those things I hope they can figure it out, because obviously we love games and we don't want them not to make games, and we want them to make good games, not crappy games. But also people should be paid appropriately, especially voice actors.
Yeah.
So
I believe they're still on strike.
they're still on.
Recording.
They're still on. As of this recording, the Voice Actors Guild. Am I saying that right? The voice actors are on strike. I think they're like with SAG-AFTRA. They're on strike, and yeah, that's a big thing because I think voice actors are a big part of what make video games as good as they are.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Obviously, there's so many people, so many different departments that come together to make a great game. But voice acting is a big one, and
especially in the games that we play that are
yes.
very character driven, like interpersonal stories.
Yes, you're not gonna have that issue in a game like Cooking Mama.
Yeah.
Which is a great game, and I don't care what anyone says about it. Little side tangent, little fun story to end on.
Yeah.
Is one year for Christmas, got a game from my parents for my Nintendo DS, and I had never heard of it before. It was called Cooking Mama, and I kind of looked at my parents, and I was like, "Oh, why did you get me this game?" And my mom did what we don't usually like people to do because it doesn't really make much sense. But she went into a game store, I believe it was GameStop, and she said, "Hey, my daughter likes games. What would be a good game for her?"
Yeah.
That goes back to the girl games versus boy games. Yeah. And so they directed her to this little cooking game, which I find funny because gender roles, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, so I was like, oh, okay, that's not great, but I'll play it. And then I got hooked and addicted to that game. It was so much fun to just play. And then there was a snowstorm that Christmas, so I got, like, stranded at my parents' house, and all I had was my Nintendo DS. So I just played that game like crazy, and it was actually a great game, despite the fact that it kind of came along to me in a way that I probably wouldn't approve of. But
yeah, that's like something that, like, working in gaming retail is people would come to me all the time and be like, well, what's a good game for girls? And, like, I knew that question was deeply rooted in that girl versus boy gaming, like, kind of stereotypes that gaming was a toy for boys. It is neither of those things. It is neither a toy, nor is it for boys.
Correct.
But so when I kind of got on my feet in the gaming retail space, I would kind of fight back against that question, and be like, well, what do you mean by that? Mm-hmm. And kind of like try and get them to explain out of it. And then when you and I got together, I definitely played it off with you.
Yeah.
Where this guy was like, well, what's a good game for girls? And I'm like, well, I'm not sure what that means. 'Cause, like, you know, I like this, but, like, my girlfriend, for example, plays Mass Effect and Dragon Age. And I remember one guy looked back at his significant other and he's like, you hear that? She plays Mass Effect. So that was my, like, sort of act of rebellion against that question, was like, hey, gaming's whatever you need it to be. Whatever you want it to be.
And it's whatever you want it to be. And you don't have to like all the action-packed, high, they're so intense, they're so complex games either. Like I said, Cookie Mama, great game. If that's what you love, you know, just go ahead and play it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that's a good way to wrap up this episode. It was a very personal episode because it's letting you guys get to know about us.
Yeah,
and who we are as people, as a couple. Mm-hmm. Going forward, the episodes probably won't be as quote-unquote personal, and we'll probably talk more about the games themselves or the movies that we're, like, looking at. But for this first one, this is more just an introductory to who we are, so you can get to know us and decide if you like our opinions or if you hate our opinions. You can let us know. And we'll either take them to heart or we will throw them in the trash.
That is correct.
So
we are 100% in this for ourselves and our enjoyment.
Yes.
But we would love to have you along for the ride.
Yes, and hopefully your enjoyment as well.
Yes.
So that will be it for this episode, and hopefully you'll stay tuned for the next one.
Yeah.
All right. See you around.
Bye.
Bye.